1 million Bitcoins. That's what the new Bitcoin Act proposes to add to the federal balance sheet. I'll break down what this act is talking about and also break down how we're going to pay for this. Give you a spoiler alert. It's going to mix in a little bit of history, a little bit of current events. Hope you like the video. See you inside. All right, Bitcoin Act 2024. Let's go. So thank you to Senator Cynthia Lummis for introducing this bill. Essentially, this bill is going to accumulate Bitcoin in a strategic U.S. reserve. So in just a second, I'll break down what is a strategic U.S. reserve. But before we do that, let's just cover the fact that we're going to be buying 1 million Bitcoins over a 5-year period, capping purchases at 200,000 annually, and then holding for 20 years. Okay, so that in one sentence is a summary of this bill. I'm going to break down kind of 3 things. First, what is a strategic reserve? Number 2, how are we going to buy this? And number 3, how can you get involved? Let's begin. So what is a strategic reserve? Okay, so you can see this is the actual bill here on congress.gov. As you can see, it's only just been introduced. It has a long way to go before it actually happens. Let's cross our fingers and hope it works. But I want to start by explaining what is this? A strategic reserve. Okay, so we're going to create something new, a strategic Bitcoin reserve, which doesn't exist currently. Okay, so what is a strategic reserve? Well, I'll let you know that the US government already does this for many other types of resources. So first one, right? Strategic Petroleum Reserve in the USA. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Okay, so you can see since the 1977, we've increased our oil reserves over time. Okay, it's gone down slightly here. Doesn't really matter. From 0 to, what was that, 500,000 gallons is a huge increase. Okay, so first thing you should know, we strategically stockpile petroleum in America. Okay, and it's not just petroleum. This is the national defense stockpile. Okay, most of these are rare earth elements. Okay, and you can see available for sale. No. Some here, yes. But essentially, we're stockpiling these because these are very important to build things. Okay, so this is national defense. Another one here, this is Elk Creek Resource. I forgot what government agency is holding this, but same sort of thing, right? It is a strategic reserve of critical minerals and rare earth elements, right? And these are all used in things like building airplanes and weaponry, high-tech devices. And they're also very hard to find. And to be honest, a lot of these are coming from China, right? So there's kind of an issue there, okay? But the reason why I'm going through this is that these are all stockpiled resources from the US government, most notably this one, the Petroleum Reserve. All right, so what this bill is proposing is in the same way that we stockpile oil and also gold. And there's other things we stockpile, but we do this for many other things, but we don't do it for Bitcoin. Okay, if you believe that Bitcoin is going to be the future of the monetary system, then it should be pretty important for us to start stockpiling this. Okay, so that's what this bill introduces. Essentially, a stockpile of Bitcoin like we stockpile other things. It's important to note that the US government actually does hold Bitcoin right now. So as we can see here, this is on Archive Intelligence, exploring the US government's wallets. Of course, this is not all their money or it's not all of the Bitcoin they own, because they probably have some other wallets that are not being tracked by this. So let's just say this is a low estimate. But the low estimate is that the US government has about 200,000 Bitcoin valued at $12 billion. Okay? That's a lot of Bitcoin, a lot of money. But if you consider the fact that the US government's economy is the largest, if not one of the largest in the world, well, that's not that much, considering that there is 21 million Bitcoin. Okay, so this bill is proposing to have 1 million in the strategic reserve, which is about, something like 5%. Okay, so we need to increase this by a lot in order to hit that target. The question then is, well, are there any other people that are doing this? Okay, so as you can see, this is the current Bitcoin ownership for the 21 million, right? It's interesting that actually the majority of the Bitcoin that will ever exist has already come into existence, and there's only 1 million left. Okay, which means if we buy this, we have to buy from other people, like owners of Bitcoin. Okay, but here it is, right? The government's right here. I think all the governments combined have only about 500,000 Bitcoin, which is not really enough. If you're a leading government of the world, you should really own a large chunk of this. Businesses are actually outdoing governments at this point, which not surprising, but yes. Anyways, the point is the US government wants to own 1 million of this. Okay? So the question is, okay, so before I move on to these other charts, let me just very quickly go back here. It's important that the US government doesn't just print money to buy this Bitcoin, because that would make everything worse, right? If they're printing money, by printing money, they're essentially stealing it from the American people. So the Cynthia Loomis doesn't want that to happen, and she's actually proposed a very smart structuring of how to buy this Bitcoin. And it breaks down into kind of two categories. First one is the essentially the Federal Reserve Bank's balance sheet. Okay, so right now it's just about 7 billion, and she wants to reduce that extra money to 2.5 billion. Talk about that in just 1 second. So that is the first way that this bill proposes to buy this Bitcoin. The second way is related to gold and the fact that the pricing is off. Okay, and I'm going to explain both of those right now, starting with the Federal Reserve Banks. So before I get to the 6 billion number, let's rewind a little bit. Okay, let's take a look at this chart here, right here. So have a look. Let's actually zoom in before you see all this crazy numbers. Let's take a look at this. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, so green is Federal Reserve notes. The ones that we should really focus on here is deposits, okay, because you can see this is the area that's increased the most. Also repos, but let's just focus on deposits. So under Alan Greenspan and also the first chunk of Ben Bernanke's tenure, you can see that this red is very, very small. And then right around here, 2008, it explodes. We have to think, what happened in 2008? Well, there was the Great Recession, okay? Related to the housing crash and things like that. I'm not going to get into that, but notice something drastic happened right there. Their deposits drastically increased from just about, let's say, 750,000 to nearly 2 million. That's a large increase. And why? It's related to quantitative easing. Okay, so the way that the government dealt with the recession was they printed more money. And if you are the Federal Reserve, well, you are the one doing the printing of the money. And so essentially what ended up happening is they printed all this money and then it went into their banks, into the Federal Reserve banks. The idea of this is that they keep it there and then they can give it to banks over time. Okay, so this is actually deceiving because this is not all the money that was printed. It's actually more than this, and that's gone into private banks. Okay? Or public banks, whatever you want to call them. Anyways, point is, printed a ton of money, okay? And this has only increased over time, okay? So, again, this happened from the Great Recession in 2008. You can see there's another pump right here, and it just keeps on going up, right? Well, I'm sorry to say, but this stops at 2018. What happened in 2019? COVID-19. Don't cough, right? All that stuff. That happened here. Okay, so unfortunately, I have some bad news. You can see it from here, it went up, and then unfortunately, this is 2019, right? It went up even more. This is the forecast. I don't believe this at all. I think JP Morgan, they're load of crap, whatever the phrase is. Anyways, they forecasted to go down. I highly doubt that. Because if you look at the historic trend, it's just only been going up over time. Okay, so you can see 2008, 2020. All right, so right now, the Federal Reserve balance sheet is stacked. They have so much money in there. And going back to the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Plan, one of the ways that we're going to pay for this Bitcoin is we're going to move this money from these banks back into the US Treasury. Okay? And the idea is when this kind of movement of money happens, the first, I forgot the amount of money, but they're gonna capture, let's have a look. Don't want to dig into this too deep, but essentially the first chunk of money is going to be captured and used to buy this Bitcoin. Okay, so this money already exists. We're not going to be taxing you more, not going to be printing more money. Essentially, the money already exists in the Federal Reserve balance sheet. This moves back to the Treasury. We're going to capture some of that money. So, idea number one, good. I like it. Idea number two, like I said, it's going to be related to gold. So let's again zoom back in time. Zoom in. Bum, 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 bum. You can see this is 1973, and in 1973, the US went off the gold standard, okay? At that moment in time, gold is worth $42, and so this was stamped, right? Stamped into the books. Gold is $42, we're moving up the gold standard, all right? Here's the sneaky thing though, right? this is the gold chart since then, right? So let's go, what is that date again? That is 1973, so right here. Okay, so right about there. You can see it's slightly off, but $42 right here. Well, as you can see, from that moment in time, the US, the value of gold has drastically increased, right? Because we went off the gold standard at that moment. At the moment we went off the gold standard, the US dollar is then decoupled and they started printing money, and essentially gold, or the US dollar, is based on just nothingness. And so, of course, the value of gold has increased. But the real problem here is that in the federal balance sheet, it's still stamped at this amount. So they have a ton of gold that they have labeled as worth $42. And yet right now it's up to nearly $2,600. A massive, massive increase in value. So essentially the second way this bill is proposing to pay for this Bitcoin, right here, they're going to remit the gain on gold in the treasury for the purpose of funding initial acquisition, right? So essentially they're going to make that adjustment. When they bought the gold, it was this, now it is this. They're going to make that adjustment, and then with that extra cash, they're going to buy this Bitcoin. All right, so way number 2 to buy this Bitcoin, brilliant. So personally, I'm a huge fan of this. I'm not sure if this bill will actually pass because really, we're taking the power from the people that have the power, and they're not going to like that. But if you want to do your part, what you can do is go to this website here. Satoshi Action Fund, essentially. Satoshi Action Fund, here's the actual website link. And what you need to do is you need to enter your first name, your last name, your email, phone number, all this stuff, and click submit, sign up. And what this will do is this will send a message to the people that need to have this message. Okay? So if you are a supporter of this bill, please go to this website, sign up. I have already done it because I am supporting this. I hope you also do it, because if we want Bitcoin to go to the moon, if we want Bitcoin rocket fuel, this is kind of the first step. Also, it's very good to protect the US economy and the US people. So that's my video. I hope you liked it. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.